If I told you that over 98% of all cameras sold in the world were actually smartphones, would you believe me? Well, it's true. And that was in 2016. It's now 2019, so those numbers are probably even higher, meaning it's probably 99% these days. On my YouTube channel, I routinely get comments questioning the viability of smartphone video, and I'm being nice by phrasing it that way. Some people are very passionate about the fact that smartphone video sucks. Of course, they're wrong, and it's been proven time and time again. You can prove it yourself just by turning on your phone and shooting some video out your window. But the question I have is, what are they so afraid of? Hey guys, this is Blake Calhoun. Welcome to another episode of Almost Professional, the podcast about living the dream as an almost professional filmmaker, aka indie filmmaker, DIY filmmaker, and mobile filmmaker. I'm saying almost professional tongue-in-cheek, of course. And in today's episode, I'm trying to dig into why people, especially on the professional side, although it's definitely not only professionals, would probably say the majority of people who are critical about camera stuff either have never made a movie or made any kind of professional video. They may just be professional commenters, professional haters, I guess is another way to say that. And I'm not saying everyone needs to agree with everything that I'm talking about. Absolutely, healthy debate is great. But when you just flat out dislike something or are afraid of something because you don't understand it, that's different. So let's look at this from a couple different perspectives here. In 2016, 0.8% of cameras were the compact point and shoot, 0.5% were DSLR, and 0.2% were mirrorless. My guess is the mirrorless is higher these days because they've become pretty popular the last year or so, maybe 2 years, especially the Sony mirrorless cameras. Those have become really popular. I actually own a Sony a6400. It's a great camera for stills and for video. But smartphones have replaced the point and shoot camera for pretty much everyone. And they have a place now where they're, if not replacing, they're absolutely sharing the spotlight with DSLRs and mirrorless in certain situations, in certain shooting situations. They're not comparable yet. The quality is not there for a lot of reasons, but it often comes down to convenience meets enough quality. So a smartphone is good enough for a lot of different things. But more or less, the point and shoot cameras of the past, which were everywhere, they were ubiquitous, those are pretty much gone these days. If you have kids and you go to any kind of event, whether that's a soccer game or a play or whatever it is, all the parents are in the audience shooting video and photos with their iPhone or their Android, their smartphone. And oftentimes you'll even see iPads. Really, no one uses a compact point and shoot camera anymore. And I don't have the stats to back this up, but I would say just anecdotally, that's the exact same for video cameras. And I'm talking about consumer cameras. The smartphone has replaced all those as well. You don't really see many dads out there shooting video of their kid playing soccer with a handy cam anymore. You see them shooting video on their smartphone. In some respects, handy cams and those kind of camcorders are better for those kind of situations, mainly because of the zoom. You can zoom in often 10 times, 20 times. I think some of them have 30 times zooms that don't degrade the footage as bad or at all. It could be an optical zoom. I routinely see people zooming in on their iPhone and they're using a digital zoom and it's degrading the footage and it looks pretty bad. But I digress. So what I'm getting at here is not only have smartphones replaced point and shoot still cameras, they've replaced camcorder or home video cameras as well. And I mentioned how they are creeping in certain respects on DSLR and mirrorless. And if things continue the way they are, and especially with computational imaging already here, especially on the photo side, but becoming much more prevalent on the video side as well, I can see a day where smartphones don't necessarily take over like they have on the still camera side, but are absolutely right there side by side with DSLR or mirrorless cameras. I know I say this a lot, but the DSLR revolution from 2008-ish with the 5D Mark II, the Canon 5D Mark II, when that first came out, professionals, and I say that in quotes, totally frowned on that setup. They said, yeah, it's amazing what you can do with that, but you can't use that in a real professional environment. And so everyone went out and bought them anyway and started using them, especially a couple years later, myself included. And you would trick out your camera with a follow focus, with a matte box, put it on a big tripod, and there would definitely be snickers from grips or gaffers or whoever looking at your setup. And for its time, it was a pretty good setup. I look back now and the H.264 footage from my Canon 7D, while it still looks pretty darn good, it's not near as good as the stuff that comes out of the Sony a6400 today. So with time, it matured, just like with smartphones. Each new generation, the footage looks better, the quality is better. There's been this photo meme going around for a while, and I saw it again recently, and it's of a shot of a camera setup, a camera rig on a job, on a set, and it's all rigged out with the matte box and the follow focus and a big battery, like a big V-mount battery. And it says, day 2 of the shoot, client hasn't noticed. And when you look closely, it's actually a GoPro camera buried under all this stuff. And I think that's pretty funny, but it's also pretty true. The client likes seeing all this stuff around it because you're charging a certain day rate. You've got to make sure what you're charging is worth it in the eyes of the client. Nowadays, in 2019, DSLR and mirrorless cameras are ubiquitous. And everyone pretty much accepts them on film sets. Not everyone. The big commercial guys and the big movie guys still, I'm sure, chuckle. They'll use them on their personal projects. They'll use them on an indie film that they do, a short film. And that might be, in the end, the best place for those kind of cameras as compared to using a Red camera or an Arri Alexa or whatever, any kind of larger cinema camera. And so this is all to say that, in a way, it's all relative. The people that snicker at mobile filmmaking, at smartphone video today, were the same ones that just a few years ago embraced DSLR and mirrorless cameras. And the people above them were snickering at them. But as time moves forward, as technology advances, as it matures, it gets accepted and then it gets embraced by everybody. I've owned an iPhone since the original iPhone in 2007. And the video quality obviously has improved dramatically since then. I've gotten a new phone every couple years, and really the iPhone 4S upped the quality enough where I could actually use it as a B-roll camera occasionally to get an insert shot. Then the iPhone 5 advanced that technology, and that's when Sean Baker used it to shoot Tangerine, or he used an iPhone 5S, I believe. And then the iPhone 6S added 4K, and that really opened up a lot of avenues. And then from there, it's just gotten better and better and better with each new phone, each new sensor they put in, each new camera sensor. I have the iPhone XS Max, and it's the best iPhone by far that I've had, for sure. In just a couple months, though, there'll be the new iPhone that comes out. And so we'll see if they update that much or not. Sometimes they're incremental updates. Other times they're pretty big updates. I think this next phone will have 3 or 4 cameras, including a super wide lens potentially. And so that might be one of the bigger upgrade selling points. But right now with the XS Max, I believe I could put that up against any camera out there within reason. I'm not talking about big boy cameras, but any camera within reason and get very similar results. So similar, in fact, that the average person wouldn't be able to tell it apart. Are there differences? Of course, absolutely. But if you know what you're doing and you know your limitations going in, then you can work around those. And just to be clear here, I run a channel called The iPhonographers on YouTube, and so I absolutely endorse and embrace mobile filmmaking, but I also am a realist about it, and I say use the best tool for the job that you can afford. I have all kinds of cameras. I have a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. I mentioned I have a Sony a6400. I've got a Canon XC10, which is a hybrid DSLR/camcorder. At our studio, I have a Red Weapon. There's a Canon C200. There's a Sony FS7. The list goes on and on. So I'm not suggesting using a smartphone in place of anything else. I'm saying use it for whatever you want to use it for, but be smart about it and know its limitations. And this brings me back to the original question, what are people afraid of? Why do people get so bent out of shape, I guess is the right way to say that, about comparing an iPhone to a Blackmagic camera or to a Red camera or whatever? What I think it all comes down to is fear. Fear that the camera they've invested in is not worthy. And maybe even more importantly, fear that anyone can go out and shoot something that looks as good as what they can shoot on their very expensive camera. Of course, when it comes to Apple devices, there's this whole world of Apple haters, which I've never really understood either. I don't care what kind of device you use. I'm not an Apple fanboy in the least. I just happen to use iPhones. But there are legions of people out there who hate Apple, and I guess it's because of their pricing. The pricing is higher, although I don't think that's the case as much anymore. Samsung in particular has expensive devices. But routinely, when I see negative comments on my YouTube videos, when you really dig down deep, and sometimes they'll just say it out loud, it's not that they don't like the video or they don't like this or that, it's that they don't like Apple. One thing I find routinely is that people's perspective or their idea of what smartphone video is based on the past. And they don't have the experience to know any better. Or they just see videos posted online, some they might have done themselves using the native camera app with all the auto settings, and it looks like crap. While it may be fine for shooting your kid's birthday party, that's not what we do when we're using Filmic Pro and using higher bit rates and manual control. You can create really great looking footage today. If you follow mobile filmmaking, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. Imagine this scenario for a second. And this could absolutely happen. Will it happen? That's another story, but it could happen. Apple puts out a Pro version of an iPhone Pro. They let it shoot ProRes or even ProRes LT, a lighter version of ProRes that doesn't take up as much space but still has really good image quality. It shoots 422 10-bit. The camera sensor can stay the same, or they could make it larger a little bit. There is limited space in there. But then with computational imaging, you're able to get shallow depth of field, even if it's manufactured. And then this all integrates with an app like Filmic Pro, where you can shoot log or flat, and you have manual control over your audio. At that point, you have a full-fledged professional camera in your pocket. You already have that to a degree today, but this takes it to the next level. Are you telling me that people right now that say mobile video is crap would still say that about that scenario? If you're a filmmaker, who wouldn't want that? I mean, right now, like I say, it's already really good, especially if you consider it's a phone in your pocket. So ultimately, there's no reason to be afraid of technology. There's no reason to be afraid that a smartphone is better than your camera, or that some novice can turn on his phone and shoot quality footage, maybe as good or better than something you shoot on a more expensive camera. It really all comes down to who's shooting with the camera anyway, and I've talked about that before. It really depends on the person behind the camera, no matter what kind of camera you're using. But the ability to do what we can do today with a smartphone, and then thinking about where these devices can go, and I mean in the next just few years, is really pretty darn exciting, and I can't wait to see where the technology goes. Just get out there and tell a story. Use the technology to your advantage, and don't be afraid. If you're into mobile filmmaking and mobile video and learning Filmic Pro, then consider checking out the course I created called The Complete Guide to Filmic Pro. This is an all-encompassing course looking at the app from top to bottom, for beginners to intermediate. Even if you already know Filmic Pro, there are a lot of good things in this course that I think can help you really unlock its potential. And just one thing to note is while the course is available on our main website through our academy, we also now offer it on Udemy. I think that's how you say that. Udemy? 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 Anyway, I think you know what I'm talking about. So now it's available there. So if you have a pre-existing account set up there where you've taken other online courses, you can now enroll in my course there as well. And speaking of courses, I'm working on a new companion course to this, and that is a cinematography course, a smartphone cinematography course that will really apply to any kind of camera, but we will focus on smartphones. But a lot of information will help you regardless of what kind of camera you want to use in the future, including your smartphone. This has been another episode of Almost Professional. I'm your host, Blake Calhoun. Thank you very much for listening, and I will look forward to talking to you in the next episode.